You're listening to Beyond Wellness Radio, bringing you the cutting edge in health, biohacking, and sports performance. Stay up to date and listen anywhere and anytime on your computer, tablet, or smartphone by subscribing on iTunes. Catch your host, Dr. Justin Marchegiani, as he answers your burning health questions as well as interviews from world-renowned guest experts. For more Beyond Wellness Radio, go to beyondwellnessradio.com.
Hey there, it's Dr. Justin Marchegiani. Welcome to Beyond Wellness Radio. Feel free and head over to beyondwellnessradio.com where you can access our full podcast transcriptions. While you're there, you can also sign up for our thyroid and female hormone video series. This series goes into the root cause of why your hormones are out of balance. While you're there, you can also schedule a functional medicine consult with Dr. Justin, myself, where we'll dig deeper into the root cause of your health challenges. Feel free and think of sharing this podcast with at least one person. This podcast grows by people sharing it. Sharing is caring. If you can think of one person that can benefit from this information, please feel free and share it. If you're enjoying the podcast, make sure you subscribe on iTunes. You can also click below the video or podcast where you'll see the iTunes review button and leave us a review. You can also sign up for the newsletter at beyondwellnessradio.com where you'll get updates before anyone else. Thank you so much and enjoy the show. Hello, ladies and germs. This is Dr. J here. I'm with Evan Brand, the one and only. Evan, what's going on, man?
Hey, not much. Did you just say ladies and germs?
I did. I'm sorry. It's Friday. I'm actually heading out to Vegas tomorrow, so I'm feeling pretty good. Feeling loose.
Awesome. You going to have some fun down there? What are you going to do?
Actually, when I go to Vegas, I like to eat really good ribeye steaks. I don't gamble. I don't stay out late. I go see really good shows and sleep 10 hours a night.
That's awesome.
Boring.
You know I used to live there, right?
I know, you did. So, Evan, today we're going to talk about diets. And we're going to talk about people that have finally, got themselves on a really healthy diet, but they're not losing weight. And again, I see this a lot more in my female patients. What's your take?
Oh, yeah, it's very common. Men don't seem to have as much of an issue, which maybe we'll get into why that's the case, but it's always the women. Whether it's a patience issue, not patience as in people, but patience with CE at the end, or it's some hormonal stuff. I mean, there's so many causes that we'll get to break down some of those today.
Yeah, I get a lot of patients that come under care and they're going on paleo or they're going autoimmune paleo or GAPS or SCD, and they don't quite lose weight off the bat. And the question is why? And what I find is that great quote from Dr. Diana Schwarzwein in her book, The Schwarzwein Principle 1 and 2. But she talks about you don't lose weight to get healthy. You get healthy to lose weight. You get healthy, then you lose weight. And that lag time between getting healthy and losing weight can vary a lot from person to person, especially if there's a history of excessive exercise, starvation, lots of food allergies, chronic infections. It could be months or it could potentially even be years because of the damage to the metabolism via the thyroid, via the adrenals. And there can be a lot of delay or time gap in how that responds to you going on this new diet and to that weight actually coming off.
Yeah, and actually, I've actually had some people at the other end of the spectrum where they started losing weight in the very beginning, and I actually have one lady right now who I'm trying to help train for a triathlon, and it's really tough for me as a coach to support that type of exercise, knowing what her hormone tests look, So it's hard for me to say that's okay for you to train that many miles, and now she's hit this weight loss plateau, and it's like, well, you can't have your cake and eat it too. We kind of have to make a compromise together here if you want to get results.
Exactly. So some of the big things off the bat, you can see our patients literally lose weight off the bat, and we get some that do great, and then we have some that flounder a little bit. I had one patient just the other day. She's about 2 months or a month and a half into her parasite killing program. She blasto and pylori, and a month and a half in, lost almost 20 pounds. So we see that time to time as well. It could be inflammation thing. And we see it also just stress hormones, cortisol resistance, where the cortisol level is significant. With thyroid issues, all these things can be major issues from a hormonal perspective. And just because you change the diet, it doesn't mean the hormones go right back in the balance. We're that way, but if we do specific programs that push the adrenals and support the adrenals, support the HPA axis, and support the thyroid, we can promote healing faster. That's the goal, at least.
Yeah, and there is some variability with the speed that, you want here. Well, Dr. J, what's the number? How many weeks? How many months is it going to take for me to lose those 20 pounds? My answer is always it ends.
Absolutely. And I see some people actually gain weight. And FYI, I did my blood sugar during the show. I always do. Today I'm at 93, so pretty good. Under 100. I get some adrenaline go through, and I'm about ready to eat lunch in just a bit. 5 hours away from last meal, so right on that blood sugar threshold there. And actually, sugar is probably the topic we should go into. We did a whole podcast on it recently into weight loss. So we know blood sugar is really important because the higher our blood sugar is, the more insulin we make. And we know insulin is primarily a fat-storing hormone. And when we make insulin, we also typically pump out leptin too. So if we have something known as insulin resistance, we typically also have leptin resistance. And that can basically allow us to store more of our calories into fat. And it can also keep us hungry, keep us feeling satiated so we overeat.
Yeah, and then kind of I don't know if you'd call it the opposing hormone, so to speak, but then you have ghrelin, your hunger hormone. And if you look at studies and you see people's leptin and ghrelin levels when they have sleep deprivation, ghrelin is elevated significantly. So think of ghrelin as growling, like your stomach, and you're going to have, and I totally feel this, man. The nights that I try to, if I stay up too late for some reason, I usually never do, but if I do, I regret it because the next day I'm starving, and no matter what I eat, I just can't cure my appetite, and so I say cure it like appetite's a disease or something, but I can't satiate myself.
Right. And we see that a lot with sleep, right? You also have blood sugar issues with sleep. You actually become more insulin resistant. They took college students and they had them stay up, I think, only sleep 4 hours a night for 2 weeks. And within a couple days, they were pre-diabetic regarding their blood sugar. Yeah. So if we do that, right, sleep, that's also going to cause us to be more insulin resistant, meaning we're going to store, especially our carbohydrates, more efficiently to fat. And then number two, we're going to be over hungry, which when we're over hungry, what are the food we typically reach for?
Probably the carbs, the quick burst of glucose.
Yeah, probably the carbs. So insulin resistance, leptin, ghrelin, those are really key things. I don't focus too much on the leptin because I find that the first domino that knocks over is going to be insulin resistance. So if you focus on the insulin resistance, you typically get the leptin resistance dialed in. And simple thing like I'm doing right now, you can see on video, blood sugar, test your fasting blood sugar, test 1, 2, 3 hours post-meal, see how your body's dealing with sugar. Also get a fasting insulin in the morning. Ideally less than 7 should be where you be, ideally under 5, but less than 7. That means that your body doesn't need that much insulin to soak up that sugar. Less insulin means less ability to store as fat and more ability to burn fuel, burn fat for fuel, because insulin automatically blocks fat from being burned. So just kind of keep that in mind. High insulin means you're a sugar burner. Lower insulin is going to mean you're a fat burner.
Yeah, and I want to kind of repeat that in a different way just so people really get that through, because I have to go through this explanation. And if we can refer someone to this podcast instead of spending 20 minutes on the topic explaining it to a patient, you cannot burn fat when insulin levels are peaked. If your tank of insulin is full, fat loss is not going to happen until that insulin gets in check. I wish I could say it like 3 other ways or something, but I think that's hopefully helpful for people, is that if insulin's high, if you're insulin resistant, waking up without an appetite, it's easy for you to skip breakfast, some of these type things, it's likely that you're going to have trouble losing weight until we get that stuff balanced.
Yeah, and then why do we actually exercise? Well, I'll actually go and say exercising really has nothing to do with the calories that we're burning during exercise, especially if we're doing high intensity or resistance training. The main reason why you do those things are to make your body more insulin sensitive, right? The more muscle you put on, the more insulin sensitive you are. That means you're going to be, and also muscle is a reservoir for carbohydrate, right? You can store about 250 to 350 grams of carbohydrate in your muscle, about 60 to 70 in your liver. So the more storage you have, when you consume carbs, you can tuck it away in those spaces. But imagine if you consume over the storage, well, your body's got to do something with it. And the first thing it's going to do is shuttle it through the liver, convert it to 2 triglycerides, and then potentially throw it into the fat cells. So again, if you're overdoing the carbs, it's going to go into the fat cells and be stored for a later date if you have less muscle. So high intensity interval training, yeah, you increase your metabolism. That's really good. You put on lean muscle, which is really good. And you're also making your body more insulin sensitive. Now, on that note, insulin sensitivity is great. Now, after a workout, what you can do, because you're catabolic and you're putting on these muscle, you can use insulin with a post-workout meal that may have a little more carbs in it to push your body into a more anabolic state so you can build more muscle and recover. So like Evan said, we increase insulin, it's hard to burn fat, but we can use that insulin spike post-workout to actually put on more muscle, which will actually help us lose more weight, especially if we're having a hard time on our diet.
Yeah, and I know there's some nerds listening to the show like ourselves, and if you want to give somebody a number, I mean, sometimes you'll hear people say that anabolic window is, 45 minutes after. Sometimes you'll see up to 2 hours after. Do you happen to have any? I haven't seen much research lately pointing to the specificity of that anabolic window. What's your general frame of reference there?
Yeah, I've seen some research looking at 30 minutes post-workout, 30 grams of whey protein, boosting growth hormone, things like that.
Yeah.
So I would say as soon after a workout, ideally within 30 minutes. And again, carbohydrates could range anywhere between 30 grams to 50 grams. I mean, I had Dr. Mark Bubbs on the show, and some of his professional basketball players are doing literally 600 to 800 grams of carbs a day. But again, it's all dependent upon how much exercise, what you're doing, and then also how overweight or how metabolically damaged you are.
Good stuff. Yeah, because I mean, I'm working out at home a lot now, but when I did have a gym membership, I remember seeing the guys go in, and obviously they were using sucralose and all of the artificial sweetener garbage type proteins. But, they were rushing to their workout bag like they were going to die if they didn't get that protein shake in, like right after they finished their last set. Like the anabolic window was like 5 seconds or something.
I know. You can do it that way. Also, if you're really training hard, you can do branched chain amino acids during the workout. That's another great way to do it. Anywhere between 20 to 30 grams can be profound because branched chain aminos, they actually go right to the muscles and can be burnt for fuel, where typically amino acids have to go to the liver first, then get converted to glucose via gluconeogenesis, and then can be burnt for fuel. But BCAAs, they can go right to the muscle and be accessed for fuel.
I love BCAA, so maybe that would attribute to why you can get, I've noticed you get an extra pump when I'm doing some intra-workout BCAAs. Would that be the cause, or would that be maybe something else that was inside of those powders? Because I'm sure in some time in my previous bodybuilder history, I was using some BCAAs that had some other crap in there.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of BCAAs. That's probably what you were seeing there. I'd say the next thing we can just switch over to is cortisol, because cortisol, people don't understand. Let's say you're a low-carb person. Let's say you're keeping your carbs under 50, so to speak. So you're like, oh, my blood sugar's fine. But it's like, dude, if you're stressed, cortisol will actually raise your blood sugar, which can then raise your insulin, even if your carbs are in check. So you actually get some people that think that their low-carb diet's actually helping their blood sugar, which, again, with most people, it's going to help it. But if you're under a lot of stress, physical, chemical, or emotional, that stress can actually raise your blood sugar just like you're eating sugar.
Yeah, I feel like that complicates things a little bit. Once again, people realize that a cookie cutter plan of someone saying, hey, you need to eat 100 grams of carbs per day, maybe, but maybe not. So that's why you kind of need to get checked out, because here's the issue. If you're going super low carb, but yet you're a high performing executive, those 50 grams of carbs may not be enough for you. You may be burning through that. So we may need to up that. And that would be kind of something you'd find out through an initial interview with somebody. What do you do? Oh, I'm a CEO of a company, but I'm almost ketogenic. Well, that could be okay, but man, if your stress level's that high, we may need a little bit of additional carbs in there to help support that system to prevent you from burning out. So I've seen that. There was actually a guy in San Francisco who's a lawyer who I was working with, and that was him. I mean, super, super stressed, and the guy was going way too hard for the stress he was under. And so I just gave this little kind of a general, very simple recommendation of, hey, I want you to try adding in, a fourth to a half cup of white rice with your dinner a couple nights a week and see what happened. And he was sleeping better and his energy levels were better. So I think that was a win.
Yeah, it can definitely make a big difference. Now, my default standing is always a paleo or an autoimmune paleo, where we're cutting out extra allergens on the low carbohydrate level. And most people, when they go low carb, it's going to be very beneficial. And then some people will go low carb, and after a period of time, a few weeks to a few months, they hit a plateau. And they're actually going to benefit by upping the carbs. So get your carbs down off the bat, anywhere between 20 to 30 if you're going to go ketogenic. Or for me, I just keep them right around 50. Get to a point where you're feeling good. And if you're feeling good and your blood sugar levels are in check and you're looking and performing well and thinking well, then that's where you got to live. But if your stress levels go up, if you're hitting a wall and things are changing, you may have to up the carbs a little bit. And again, if you're going to do it, when do you up the carbs? You do it primarily at night when your cortisol is the lowest. They've done studies where they've taken people on isocaloric diets, meaning let's say you're on a diet of 2,000 calories, I'm on a diet of 2,000 calories. You're on a diet of 150 carbs, I'm on the same 150 carbs. The difference was in the two studies, using our analogy, is your carbs are spread out throughout the day. All mine were consumed at night. And guess what the results of those studies show?
You tell me.
Well, the group at night, they had the same amount of carbs, same amount of calories. They actually lost more weight and lowered their BMI. So what that tells me is there's something hormonally more than likely having to do with insulin resistance and our cortisol diurnal rhythms, meaning cortisol goes from high in the morning to low at night. Something to do with that nighttime consumption of carbohydrates tends to make the body more of a fat burner.
Interesting. So high cortisol plus carbs doesn't seem to be a good combo then.
High cortisol plus carbs?
Yeah, like in the morning. Like if you're eating a ton of carbs in the morning,
exactly.
it doesn't seem to be optimal.
Yep. So I had like a patient who was like, she's loving her plantains and her eggs. I'm like, great, do your plantains and eggs for dinner. And then we're going to have your dinner for breakfast and just primarily vegetables throughout the day. And she does her carbs at night. And she's going to start sleeping better and feeling better. And again, that's the unique position that anyone listening to our podcast gets, is that because we're clinicians and we're in the trenches every week with patients, people are actually getting firsthand knowledge. Most of the podcasts that I listen to, it's all theoretical. Oh, do this, do that, and I think this, and I read this study. That's great. But you got to actually see what's working. And I think that's the unique benefit. And just this whole entire thing that we're talking about with carb backloading can make a big difference if you're struggling with your weight. Try doing that. Try upping your carbs a bit. And, my recommendations for carbs are between 50 to 100, generally speaking. Some people that are doing CrossFit or more exercise may need even higher than that. So you got to figure out where your stress levels are, where your activity levels are, and dial your carbs up. And you can use blood tests like fasting insulin, ideally below 7, ideally below 5, actually. You can use a functional glucose tolerance test like I mentioned here. Again, blood sugar should be under 140 1 hour after a meal, 120 2 hours after a meal, and then 3 hours after a meal back to 100. Again, if I'm going fast, go to beyondwellnessradio.com and check out the transcriptions. They're all free. And the next thing, hemoglobin A1C is a good marker. Ideally in the lower 5s. Hemoglobin A1C can be off sometimes because the healthier your diet is, right? The ideal diet we're recommending is one that's anti-inflammatory, low in toxins, and nutrient dense. And when you add that kind of diet in, well, your red blood cells live longer. And the longer they live, the more they can accumulate glucose, which is basically the measurement of the hemoglobin A1C. So you can have high A1C levels by being healthier just because your red blood cells live longer and have more time to collect blood sugar. So A1C is a good marker. And then from a short-term level, fructosamine, which is like a 10-day window of blood sugar, somewhere in the low 200s can be a pretty good marker for that as well. So we got fasting blood sugar, insulin, fructosamine, and A1C as your markers.
Let me ask you about fasting insulin. I'm getting kind of geeked out over here in a good way. Fasting insulin, can I measure that with one of those little cool finger pricks where you can measure glucose?
As far as I'm concerned, absolutely not. I'm actually
That's
waiting.
what I thought.
I'm waiting for the blood sugar meter that has blood sugar, insulin, and cortisol. That would be absolute heaven. Right now, I order fasting insulin via blood work. I don't think they have that. I know I've heard Tim Ferriss and people talk about it. They do have really fancy ones that you can get, but they're super expensive. I think they're more in a research setting, and they actually plug into you, and you can see live readings of where your blood sugar and insulin levels are live.
Wow, I figured
cool.
It just sounds so fun. Like, yeah, check this, check that, check this, and then it's like, oh crap! Well, you still have to go to the lab and get it drawn. That's the only downside. Still, we'll get there.
I could be off on that, but from what I've seen commercially, they aren't available. There may be some way, like you can get a prescription via your doctor if you're like type 1 diabetic or something, or in a research setting. But as far as I know, I do not think that's available.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I just wanted to check. Maybe you had some top secret way to do that I didn't know about yet.
I know. I wish. Not today. So next is metabolism damage, right? So we talk about cortisol. We talk about, which is an adrenal hormone and a stress hormone. We talk about thyroid. So your thyroid is like your thermostat that sits right on your, right in your neck, kind of where your bow tie would be if you were wearing one, so to speak. And it controls metabolism, energy, cholesterol metabolism, etc. We need healthy thyroid levels to have healthy hormone levels, because thyroid breaks down the building blocks that actually become your hormones, cholesterol. So if we have a lower thyroid because of stress or resistance or cortisol resistance, like I was saying, or autoimmunity, we can have low thyroid levels by low conversion or just by autoimmunity and receptor sites not getting activation to that thyroid hormone. And again, we talked about this last podcast on the thyroid, so go back to that for more info. So with low thyroid, we may feel like we have cold hands or cold feet. We may have the hair falling out a little bit. We may have the thinning eyebrows. So look at those symptoms and see if you have them. And if your temperature is low, ideally below 97.8, in the low 97s or even 96, then you want to get your thyroid levels checked. TSH, T4 free in total, T3 free in total, reverse T3, RT3, and then also your antibodies, TPO and thyrobinding globulin. I know we're going fast, everyone, but just check out the transcriptions to get that all dialed in if you need to see it in writing.
Yeah, I wanted to say one more thing, another cause of hypothyroidism that's overlooked still. And there's a video on YouTube. Obviously, we're telling you here, so you can just listen here. But if people want to see another little, like a 2-minute presentation, there's a guy on YouTube. His name's Dr. Jerry Tennant, and he talks about how fluoride, basically, which is in every city's tap water across the United States, basically, except for, I believe, Houston and Portland, Oregon. Anyway, fluoride basically bullies out the iodine, because they're in this same column, if you will, on the periodic table of elements. And so if you're putting in fluoride, but you're not getting enough of the natural iodine from your Himalayan salt or something like that, if you're not getting that, then that fluoride can kind of fit that receptor site. And, tell me if I'm mistaken here, but when that fluoride plugs in there, the thyroid is going to uptake that and ingest it. It's going to eat it, basically thinking it's iodine, and it's not. And then you have hypothyroid, and then you have weight gain and hair falling out and other issues that could still happen from the other causes, but I would consider that a nutritional stress from not having quality water.
Absolutely. I mean, we see that all the time. You've been doing your homework. They did a study over in England where they looked at 2 different, I think, cities. One was fluoridated, one wasn't, and they saw a significant increase in the hypothyroid people in the city that was fluoridated versus the non. So we know fluoride's an issue. I mean, there's so many other issues dedicated to fluoride that are even worse. For instance, increased osteosarcoma or bone tumors. Study from Harvard on that one. So you don't want to have fluoride. It's a poison. There's all kinds of different things you can go to for more info on that. Christopher Bryson's book, The Fluoride Deception. You can look at Paul Connett over at Fluoride Alert. Lots of good stuff on fluoride, and you want to get it out. I spent a lot of money at my house to have reverse osmosis countertop filters that infuse minerals back in, as well as a whole house water filtration system, because I believe getting fluoride out of your water is essential to good health.
Your water was good. You gave me some out of that little sink thing you have. It tasted great.
Yeah, that's what you got to do, man.
I'm sticking with the spring water, but every time I buy, a huge case of these big gallon jugs that are still coming from plastic, my soul gets a little bit sucked, and I'm like, plastic, So I've kind of debated doing that that model that you've done, or doing like a Berkey system with the fluoride filters and things like that. But it's just hard to really get solid research. Berkeys are actually going to do something. I found one website, man. It's I think it was the guy from Natural News who did it, and he
Mike
supposedly
Adams,
sent off Mike Adams. He supposedly sent all these different water samples away and found that Berkey was the best at getting rid of all of the fluoride compared to all these other competition type same things, and they didn't do it. They didn't remove all the heavy metals and stuff. So I'm still kind of playing around with that idea for right now, but I'm drinking spring water as we speak. That's I believe it's ozonated or carbon filter, both.
That's cool. Yeah, I use Aquasana and I use Pelican, and I use Aquasana as well. I use two different filters, and there's something to be said about getting in your shower in the morning and then just having the shower right on your face, and then just being able to drink the water coming right at you. It's awesome. Love it.
Yeah, I don't have that advanced yet. I just have I believe it's a Culligan. It just removes 99.9% chlorine. And I do notice a huge difference. My wife is somebody who likes to have hot showers. And I told her, look, you have these byproducts called trihalomethanes that increase all sorts of issues. And we got to be aware of those. So we got that filter. It doesn't smell as bad, but it's still not perfect water.
Yeah. And again, if you want to take a look, or any of the listeners want to check out the filters that I use, justinhealth.com/shop, click on the water filters category, and those are the ones that I like.
Sweet.
So down the list we go. Functional medicine labs, I think we already hit that for blood sugar perspective. All the blood sugar markers, because those are going to be the most important for burning fat. We kind of talked about the exercise things. And we talked about the stress hormones and how the thyroid's all connected. So I think we got that. We talked about sleep and how it can affect blood sugar and insulin, but also it can make us hungrier, which will thus make us eat crappier foods that make us gain weight. So we got that down. Anything else you wanted to reiterate here, Evan?
Not really. The labs, we could also add in that sometimes we'll run the adrenal labs as well, just to see what's up with your cortisol. Are you tanked? Is it too high? Because that's kind of something that will be factored into your protocol as well.
Yeah, forgot.
So that one, you talked about the thyroid one, the antibodies. I think that sums it up, man. I think that was a pretty incredible vomiting at the mouth of health information we did today.
No, I hear you. And there's one last thing I want to add to it. Some patients, once we've done all these things right, some patients do benefit from a good metabolic reset with an HCG diet. I do find this. We use injectable HCG. We follow the Simeon's protocol for typically 28 days or so, or about a month, and that can provide a significant metabolic reset. And I only recommend that or do that with my patients that have gone through everything first, because you got to have all the foundations dialed in. But HCG, I'd be very leery of the homeopathic stuff, just because that's not what the research was done on. That's not the mechanism that A.T. Simeon's talked about in the 60s and the 70s when he published it in Lancet. So I think the HCG can be profound reset and really help people lose weight. And I've seen patients keep it off for years after as well.
Yeah, and some people's BS alarm goes off when they hear HCG because they're used to that crap you buy at Walgreens. That's not the HCG you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I've done it myself too. I did it last summer. I lost too much weight on it. It's not for me because I'm kind of already at my weight, but I've seen multiple patients do it, and we do the injectable HCG and we follow the protocol, and it works phenomenal.
And you're doing the real stuff. That's what I'm trying to make the point of, because there's some multi-level marketing TV infomercial at 3 a.m. HCG scams. That's not the same type of quality. That's probably not even the same type of stuff that's used in the clinical setting.
Yeah, you want to get the pharmaceutical grade. You want the real stuff, and you want to inject it. And how you know it's the real stuff is because you'll come back positive on a pregnancy test.
Interesting.
Yeah. So if any women out there want to freak out their husbands, go on the HCG and show them the positive pregnancy strip, because you'll actually come back positive on that with the injectables.
So I guess you would have showed positive on a pregnancy test too?
I don't know if it works the same way with men, but I know my wife did it last year, and we saw that the case. So it's something to think about. I don't recommend it off bat. You really want to make sure you go see a good functional medicine doctor first, or a practitioner. Get everything lined up, and make sure all the metabolic things are dialed in before you go to that. So I know people like myself and you deal with this all the time. So people are kind of scratching their head, what's the next step? Reach out to Evan at notjustpaleo.com or myself, Dr. Justin at justinhealth.com as well, and we can help you get on the right path.
Yep. I started blabbing and getting off subject, so thanks for reeling me back in there.
Anything else you want to add, Evan?
No, that's it. Everybody have a great day. Take good care of yourselves in the meantime, and we'll talk to you real soon.
Thanks, everyone. Enjoy your weekend.
Got a question for Dr. J? Go to BeyondWellnessRadio.com and click the questions button. Then tune in to hear the answer. Also, if you like the show, click below to review us on iTunes. For more Beyond Wellness Radio, go to BeyondWellnessRadio.com.